Welcome to By the Cottage Hearth with Dana Maree. I'll be taking you through the journey we make as healers, the impact we're yet to make, and the words to use to describe it. Come on in. Hello and welcome back to the Hearth. This is episode 16 and today I'm going to be talking about the importance of community and having community as a healer. This is something that probably took me a lot longer than it should have to realize how important it was going to be, not just for my business's growth, but for my own growth, like from a personal development standpoint. They say that starting your own business is like one of the biggest opportunities for growth as a person, and I would definitely agree with that. As much as motherhood was a self-development journey, I think starting a business gives you the opportunity to learn so much about yourself, and it takes so much self-reflection and I think honesty, self-awareness, a lot of self to pursue and go down the path of starting your own business. And I think as healers, we have this unique viewpoint on it because we don't want to be a burden to anyone else, because we don't want to inconvenience anyone else, because we don't want to take from anyone else. We have this tendency to try and do a lot of things by ourselves. And I know that might not necessarily just be a healer thing. I know I have a lot of DIY traits. I have a lot of I'm Miss Independent. I can do things by myself. So there's probably an element of trauma response and probably pig-headed stubbornness from a personality trait standpoint that play a part in that. But I think our big hearts as healers lead us to be so considerate about what our actions, how our actions are impacting the people around us, that we have this tendency to want to give to everyone else. We'll be the first people to put our hands up and be like, yeah, I'll help you figure out that. You need help with your business? Let's jump on a free session and just talk about it. We'll be the first people to do that. But when someone else is actually offering that, it's really hard for us to take them up on their offer, because we don't want to bother someone. We don't want to take advantage of someone else. We're very mindful about how our actions might be impacting other people. So I know that in my own business journey, I resisted the idea of building a community for a long time. And I had a lot of I'd watch a lot of YouTube videos and I would do a lot of research on my own. I was very much growing in this little ecosystem of just me and pulling in resources as I found them and trying to do it by myself. And it was when I finally accepted I need to talk to other people who are on this journey. I'm feeling isolated. I'm feeling alone. I need to hear what other people are doing around me. It was when I took that step that I really started to hit my stride. I really started to learn, and there were so many different perspectives. There were so many voices, and that can be really overwhelming. As a neurodivergent person, I do have a tendency to get really overwhelmed being in big spaces, and then I'll go from one extreme of talking to everyone and getting really excited to the other extreme of being burnt out socially and just withdrawing into my little bubble and not wanting to talk to anyone for a while. So I do recognize that plays a part of it as well. But it was when I started talking to these other people that I realized that I wasn't the only one who was experiencing this. It wasn't hard because there was something wrong with me or I was an idiot and I was stupid and couldn't get it. It wasn't about me at all. It was just the journey was difficult. There are things we have to figure out about ourselves. It's a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness and honesty with yourself, to realize that there are parts that you have to be vulnerable and say, I don't know how to do this, and I need to reach out to someone else to try and figure out how to do it. And as much as I'm independent and I can figure it out myself, it's going to take 10 times longer to do that than it would have if I had just reached out to someone and said, hey, this is something I'm really struggling with. Is that something you could help with? So It did. It did take me a lot longer than it should have to reach out for that community. And I also realized that a big part of that was a fear of being rejected. So it's something I'm upfront about. I'm someone who lives with RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria, and in social situations, I struggle, and probably not as much as people realize. Like, I might have this, I might give this impression that in social situations, I'm really bubbly and talkative and I do really well, and it's a performance. And if I'm comfortable and I'm familiar with the people I'm around, there is a certain air of that sticks around. I am a storyteller, and I like to make people laugh. So that's still going to be there. But if it's a social situation that I'm unfamiliar with and I don't know the people who are around, I get very anxious. And in that anxiety, I overtalk and I overperform and I overshare. And afterwards, I will go into analytical mode where I'm like, well, I shouldn't have said that to that person, and I probably shouldn't have told that story, and that person's going to hate me for the rest of their lives. And it is an unfortunate part of the way that my brain is wired. For all its strengths, there are some things that aren't so fantastic. But I do recognize that part of what made me so nervous to go out and start networking and talking to other people was I'm someone who recognizes how quirky I am and that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. And it was hard feeling like I've always been a misfit, therefore I'm going to just assume that there's not going to be a community out there for me. I'm just going to assume that I'm not going to fit in and I'm not going to belong. And I say that because I know that's not the case now. And I know that I'm not the only person who tells themselves that. And there are still moments where I look at a group, whether it's an online like Facebook group or whether it's a networking event, and I go, "Ooh, these are not my kind of people. We're not going to be on the same wavelength. I'm going to really struggle to find common ground to talk about." But I've gotten better at taking a chance and going to these kind of events and telling myself, but what if there is someone there? So one story in particular, I went to a conference. There were a lot of beautiful, wonderful, lovely people at this conference. I wore a black cocktail dress because it was the only nice dress that I had, and I didn't know what to wear, and I knew I looked good in this dress, so I just wore this dress. This is back when I had my fire hair, so it was red, orange, yellow. Like, I was looking I stood out, but you know what, I was feeling myself, and that was fine. And then when I went to this event, it seemed like every other person had gotten a outfit memo that I had just completely missed. So they were all dressed in these pastel, soft colors, pinks and blues and everything. And I stood out like a fucking sore thumb. And I tried so hard not to overthink it, which naturally meant I was focusing on it more. And I was very aware at how much I stood out. And I thought, wow, okay, so I'm not going to fit in with any of these people. I have nothing in common with them. But I just waited. I waited to see how it was going to play out. And there was two people in particular that I really connected with, and they were absolutely beautiful humans. And one of them had this very loud laugh that, like, you knew that it even caused feedback on the mic when she was talking, just because it was just this big, like, belly laugh that came out, and it was so fucking beautiful. Like, you could feel her energy in the room. So she was one person that I connected with, and we both connected over anxiety, because her anxiety was coming across along the way when she was talking on stage, and it was something we definitely related to. And she actually reached out to talk to me because I put up a post about how much I stood out and how much my anxiety was coming up, and she was like, should I come and talk to me, because I was feeling the same way. And there was another person that I connected to who was sitting next to me, and we were passing notes to each other because you didn't want to be rude talking while the talks were going on, but we were talking, and she said, are you going to be going and having dinner with everyone afterwards? And I said, look, I'm going to be honest here, because that's a very Dana trait. I'm going to be honest. I'm not really feeling like I'm one of the crowd here. And there was a bar down the road that had a sign up saying it had a mechanical bull. So I was kind of thinking I was going to go and check that out and maybe go ride a mechanical bull after this, because I have a list of things that I want to do in my life, and that just so happens to be on my list. And she was like, that sounds fucking fantastic. So afterwards, I spent the night with this wonderful woman who had been talking to me about off-grid living and her travels around the world and all of these fantastic things that she had done, and we shared stories, had a fantastic night. The mechanical bull was retired, unfortunately, so I got a picture of me in my little black cocktail dress, which in hindsight, probably not the outfit I needed. Just lucky it wasn't going. But got a photo on it. We went out for dinner, had a wonderful night, had a beautiful heartfelt connection with someone else. So as much as I could have walked into that room, seen the waves of colours that made me stand out and gone, I think I'm going to turn around and go back home, I didn't. I stayed. I gave it the chance that if I was going to feel like I stuck out, then my kind of people probably felt that way as well. And I'm really grateful for past Dana to take chances like that, because it has built up my window of tolerance. It's built up my resilience when it comes to these kind of networking events, because it's meant that I believe now that if there is someone I'm meant to talk to in a room, I trust myself to find them. And that might be because my loud, honest, oversharing self comes out, and that energy attracts the people who are meant to hear me. And that might mean that sometimes I have to overcome that anxiety coming out, but it has paid off. And it does get easier the more that I do it. And I found that's not just an in-person thing. That's been the same for building up my presence online as well. So I was talking to a client about this today, actually. The first live that I did, I decided that I was going to be knitting and spinning and have my cup of tea. And that was how I was going to do my lives. And my first live, I was so nervous that teacup was like shaking and clanking against the saucer. And I was like, well, that is not a good way to try and hide my nerves, is it? So the cup of tea very quickly got vetoed. And then I also realized that I talk with my hands a lot. I'm very expressive and I throw my hands everywhere. And when I'm doing my lives, it's not scripted. I don't even give myself bullet points of what I want to cover. I give myself one line of a topic that I'm going to ramble for 20 minutes about. And it didn't end up working, like trying to crochet and talk at the same time. Multitasking was not happening. So it was very quickly retired, the idea of trying to do my crafts, as much as I would absolutely love to do some kind of arts and crafts circles and just share stories and stuff. Maybe that's something I'll introduce into Saga, holding circles and just talking in craft circles. That sounds pretty exciting. But I retired it, and it wasn't until I tried it and realized, that's not quite for me, that I knew that. And the more I did my lives, the more I felt confident. My hands don't necessarily shake anymore. I can jump on and ramble for 20 minutes just with one sentence to give myself some kind of thread of thought, to give some kind of structure to a live. And I'm not even doing Facebook lives because I got frustrated with the technology, and it really upset me beyond what was reasonable. I think the frustrations just built up over and compounded over time to the point where I went, nope, stuff it, I'm not doing fucking lives anymore. So now I'm recording my content and actually putting it up. But I've gotten to the point where I don't need as many things off my safety net list to feel safe or feel comfortable enough to jump on and do something. So for my podcast, I have a few bullet points of things that I kind of want, and that's more to keep my spicy brain on track, to make sure that I'm talking about the thing that I showed up to talk about. But I don't need as much reassurance and as much of a safety net to feel comfortable to come on and do these things. But at the beginning, I really did. And I think that's not just about public speaking or showing up online. I think that's when it comes to building community, there's always going to be an element of vulnerability there, because you have hope. You have hope that you'll find your fellow weirdos out there. You have hope that you'll find someone who loves a certain thing as much as you do. Whenever I find someone who loves tiny house living, crocheting, homesteading, self-sufficiency, I bundle these people up and go, you are my friend for life now, because we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about this shit for 2 fucking hours, and we are going to bond, because you are now one of my people, and I get very attached to people when I figure out we're on the same wavelength, and I collect these people. And what I do is I go around collecting these people until I have a group and a community. And is that kind of how my audience started? Is that how Saga started? Yeah, probably. Me walking around going, you're my kind of weirdo, come with me. And I do get asked by some people, how do you start building a community? How do you, what kind of groups do you jump into on Facebook and things like that? Because we don't know whether a space is going to be safe for us. We don't know if a space is going to be for us until we go out and try it. And unfortunately, there are a lot of Facebook groups that aren't fucking fantastic. There are spaces that might be highly regulated in terms of what you can talk about. There might be some that have a whole bunch of people that don't hold the same kind of views as you. There might be some people that don't recognize your view and your perspective of the world, or aren't willing to recognize your lived experience. And that can be really hard for whatever reason you feel othered in the world, for whatever reason, whether it's because of your gender identity, if it's your sexuality, is it your disability, is it your chronic illness, is it your ethnic background. There could be so many different reasons why in this world you feel othered. Me as a neurodivergent pagan person, and there could be a whole bunch of other reasons. That's just off the top of my head, reasons why I find myself. I'm a traumatized little gremlin. I have a lot of reasons why I struggle in social situations. So whatever your lived experience is, it could be that you struggle to find community, because you need to know that you're going to feel safe and these people are going to accept your view of the world, and it's going to be safe to express yourself. Coming back to my entire reason for my business is self-expression. So I recognize that it doesn't always feel safe to express yourself in online groups, because for whatever reason, this group of people has collected together, and they may be your kind of person and they may not, but it takes hanging out and that, and usually it takes something going wrong to confirm or deny whether that group's going to be for you. So there have been groups that I've hung out. I've hung out in Facebook groups. One of the ones that I've been in for a very long time, on and off, as I've deleted and come back to social media, has been the Heart-Centered Soul-Driven Entrepreneurs group. It's got 35,000 people in it now. And I have met a lot of my biz besties, a lot of lifelong friends now that, I collected my little weirdos, and they're now fucking stuck with me for life. If you know who you are. But it has taken a lot of vulnerability and a lot of time for me to feel comfortable to reach out to people and have conversations. And if you're someone who has struggled with these groups, especially just with the overwhelming feelings that come with social media in general. Like I said, I've deleted my social media, or I've gone on year-long hiatuses where I've gone, yeah, I can't be here right now because this is just too overwhelming. Sometimes finding people like that helps. Having people that you're like, hey, I haven't heard from you in 6 months. How the hell are you? What have you been up to? And just knowing that you've got these people that you can touch base with, and maybe aren't going to be ongoing touch base every day kind of people. Because if you're not that kind of person, then I don't think you should force yourself into those kind of social arrangements where you're going to burn yourself out trying to mask and show up every day. For the sake of keeping connection. Find yourself a group of other misfits who are happy to touch base every 6 months because you've forgotten each other exists, and then you remembered and it was a wonderful celebration, and now you're going to catch up, and then you're going to not talk for 6 more months. Because if that's the kind of person you are, and that's the kind of connection and network, there is nothing wrong with you. It is totally okay that your brain is wired that way, and I see you and I completely understand. So if you would like to talk to someone and then forget they exist for 6 months and have them not hate you, I'm your kind of person. Come find me. But I think it comes back to recognizing, as always, the way that you are and the person you are is wonderful, and you do not have to socialize like everyone else, and you're allowed to decide what that socialization and what that community looks like. And at the end of the day, you have to honor who you are, and it's important to find community as healers and as people, because we are innately wired to want to find connection with other people, and it does really help from a business standpoint, so you don't feel so alone. But it can feel scary when you've been someone who's been on the outskirts for a long time, or it's always been that way. So this is your permission slip to figure out what community can look like for you, whether that's easier in person or online, whether that's regularly touching base every day or disappearing every 6 months and just having that little socialization, and you're like, yep, I'm done. That was my little buzz. Thank you very much. And just being honest with other people. This is what I'm capable of. This is what I've got capacity for. Does that sound like the kind of community or networking that works for you? And whatever shape and form that takes is exactly what it should be for you, and that's okay. I'm going to shameless plug, because yes, it is my fucking podcast. And if community is something you've been looking for, and I am your cup of tea, and you think that other people who are my cup of tea might be your kind of people, I do have a group program called Saga. It does have a huge emphasis on community, and if working on your visibility and sharing your stories and learning how to articulate and communicate the work that you do as a healer, if that's all the kind of stuff that you're kind of working on right now, and you'd like to check out Saga, you can come and have a look at it. I'll pop the links in the description for the podcast episode. But I think having that community that feels like a safe space where you can work on your self-expression and build up that tolerance window for yourself so it doesn't feel so scary posting out in the wild, I think it is really important, which is why I made it such a focus for Saga. And if you would like to join us, we would absolutely love to have you. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Hopefully it gave you a little bit more confidence to go out and find what community can look like for you, or redefine what networking can be for you. And I shall see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of By the Cottage Hearth with me, your host, Dana Maree. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on whatever platform you're on to be notified of new episodes. And you can also follow me on By the Cottage Hearth on Facebook and Instagram. Check out show notes for any links or freebie goodies that I might have going at the time. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next episode. Keep healing.